Hey, welcome to Mooney Reads. My name is Beck, and today I'm going to be matching Mountain Goats albums with queer books. Now, I have no idea who's actually going to watch this because I haven't really heard anyone on the bookish internet talk about Mountain Goats. But I know that there are lots of gay Mountain Goats fans, so maybe someone will watch this. I saw some people doing this with album covers and book covers, and I got the idea for this video, and I adore the Mountain Goats, and I adore gay shit, so I'm here. I have matched up books with 3 different Mountain Goats albums, and then a couple of extra songs as well that I'll get to towards the end. So I'm going to start with the oldest album and work my way through. The first album that I chose a book for was Tallahassee, which was released in 2002. This is definitely in probably my top 3, if not in my top 5 favorite Mountain Goats albums. This focuses in on the alpha couple, which is basically this really toxic couple. There are other albums where you can find some songs on them, but Tallahassee is kind of their album. So it's a pretty dark album. There are some songs that sound happy, but the actual contents of them are not really. And to get the full scope of that, if you didn't want to sit and listen to the whole album, No Children is the track to go to. The vibe that I get from this album is very hot, sticky southern summer. So with kind of those themes and that feel, I chose In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a book that talks about the author's experience being in an abusive queer relationship. This is a very literary nonfiction book. Most of it's written in second person, so you are sort of falling in love with this person, and then seeing everything really go downhill. It's framed by some first-person stuff that talks about things like culture and court cases and how queer women have problems getting help for domestic abuse situations. I mostly paired both of them because they both talk about different toxic kind of relationships, although I do want to be clear that In the Dream House is definitely abusive. There are multiple ways to read the alpha couple, but this is pretty definitive in that sense, I think. I also feel like I get some of the same hot and sticky vibes. I don't think that the majority of this is set in the South. I know that there's at least one chapter that's in Florida, but that same hot, sticky summer feel gets in through here, and I don't know if it has to do with the oppressive nature of the relationship, or the fact that some of it is set in the summer, but that's kind of what I got. Additionally, I was quite proud that the covers kind of matched. This is the only one that I was able to manage that for. Now for this book specifically, I actually went in and found different sections of the book that matched up with certain songs on this album. I've got 3 different songs that I wanted to go through in 3 different parts of the book. If you don't want that much information about the book, I'll put timestamps below. I also don't really want to talk for 100 years. I already know that this is the one that I'm going to spend the most time talking about. So I'm going to list the song and the part of the book. I recommend pausing and listening to the song so you know what I'm talking about. But then I'm going to read specific lyrics from the song or talk about a specific part of the song and then do the same for the book. I'm not going to over-explain how they connect because you can probably figure it out yourself, and if you can't, ask me in the comments and I'm more than happy to probably write something that's way too long about it. The first song that I'm going to be talking about is Southwood Plantation Road, which is track 3 on the album. This fits in with multiple parts of the book, but the specific part that I'm going to be looking at is page 108, Dream House as a Lesson in the Subjunctive. So, the specific lyrics that I kind of latched onto a little bit were, I am not gonna lose you, we are gonna stay married, in this house like a Louisiana graveyard, where nothing stays buried. And I'm just gonna go ahead and read the whole chapter since it's literally just one big run-on sentence. Yes, there are spiders in the basement, and yes, the floors are so uneven you can feel them pushing your right leg up against your torso if you run too quickly from room to room. And yes, she's never unpacked and is using tall cardboard boxes filled with bric-a-brac as furniture. And yes, the couch is so old you can feel the springs in your back. And yes, she wants to grow a pot in the basement. And yes, every room has bad memories. But sure, the 2 of you could raise children here. The next song is The House Dripped in Blood, which is track 5, and I paired this with The Dream House as Haunted Mansion, which is just 1 page long, and that's on page 127. And some significant lyrics. Still waters stagnant, bodies bloat, and the cellar door is an open throat. The way that I took these lyrics is not the same as I think the narrator was portraying them, but I saw it as this whole idea that you can strip the house, but the bodies in the cellar will still be there regardless. And with this, I have 2 shorter quotes that I wanted to read that are both found in the last paragraph of 127. And then it occurs to you one day, standing in the living room, that you are this house's ghost. Then further down, after all, you don't need to die to leave a mark of psychic pain. If anyone is living in the dream house now, he or she might be seeing the echo of you. So, I think that really clearly plays in very well with kind of the bodies in the cellar, and that sort of metaphor. And then the final song that I'm going to look at on Tallahassee is International Small Arms Traffic Blues, which is track 10 on the album, and I'm pairing that with The Dream House's Choose Your Own Adventure, which spans from page 162 to 176. So with the song, the whole thing basically talks about how their love is like these various explosive, dangerous things. Then the final lyrics in the song say, "You've got the best of my love." So this kind of normalizes this really explosive, dangerous sort of love. And I don't have a specific quote necessarily from Choose Your Own Adventure because it kind of speaks for itself if you read it all together. I think that idea as a whole kind of speaks for a lot of the kind of thought process that happens in a lot of abusive relationships. And I think that that's also seen, or like the demonstration of that explosion can sort of be seen through this Choose Your Own Adventure section of the book. The next album that I'm going to focus on, we jump 10 years to 2012 with Transcendental Youth. And I think the album title kind of speaks for itself and what the album is about, but I think that if you did want one song to kind of encompass the album, I think that you should listen to Cry for Judas. It really speaks to, wanting to go out and do things that make you happy, but those same things also, I guess, are a result of impulsivity. And I think that in general can be seen really well in the novel Nevada by Imogen Binnie. There's a lyric in the first song on this album that says, "Do every stupid thing that makes you feel alive." And that's kind of what the main character, Maria, ends up doing. In this book, Maria is figuring out that she doesn't actually know herself that well and is kind of forced to reckon with it when her girlfriend breaks up with her. And then she ends up doing a lot of different things, including drugs and a road trip. I really, really love this book. I don't think that it's for everybody because it is very character driven, but I really adored it. This is definitely about finding yourself and living out the recklessness of youth, basically, and that kind of youthful recklessness is totally outlined in Transcendental Youth. As well as the 2 songs that I've already mentioned, I think that Counterfeit Florida Plates also fits this really well. It definitely has road trip vibes, people not giving a fuck, and then also contending with loneliness, which is a big piece of what Nevada is about as well. Harlem Roulette is definitely one that is good for the second part of this book. I don't want to say like any more than that just because the second part isn't super expected. And then the final song that I wanted to point out was In Memory of Satan, because while I don't think that In Memory of Satan is a perfect, it doesn't perfectly go along with any of the things that happen, but I think that is going to be what the fallout looks like for Maria that you don't get to see. So the next album that I'm going to focus on is Goths from 2017. But I think that the book that this goes with actually goes really well with Nevada. So you could just pair all 4 of these things together. I will say before I put the book on the screen that the title is the T-slur. I'm not going to say it, but it's going to be visible. It is Laura Jane Grace's memoir, Confessions of Punk Rock's Most Infamous Anarchist, Sellout. For those of you who don't know, Laura Jane Grace is the lead singer of Against Me. So this memoir kind of talks about her experience with the punk scene, and this goes along really well with Goths, which focuses on the goth music scene. So obviously both of these albums don't talk about the same music scene, but they both talk about different music scenes with a sort of dark nostalgia. There's also a lot of drugs in both this book and the album. Again, I have 3 songs that I think go best with this or go with specific components. The first one is We Do It Different on the West Coast, and I don't have like specific lyrics. I just think that that vibes really well. I don't know geographically just because I forget facts like what state things are in unless it's super relevant, but I thought that they fit really well together. The second song that I wanted to point out is Wear Black. This is another one where the vibe definitely fits, and even some of like the literal stuff that's being said, like both groups have kind of a darker aesthetic. But there were 2 lyrics from the song that really spoke to me in relationship with this book. Check me out, I can't blend in. Check me out, I'm young and ravishing. And then the second quote, wear black when you come around, wear black in your absence, wear black high as a kite, wear black dead sober. Then later on, wear black to the intervention, wear black back to the car. What I get from these lyrics, as well as at least a chunk of what this book was, there's definitely a romanticization of the culture, but also it talks about some of the tough things that are happening, including hypocrisy, which I think is a lot more subtle in this song. Like, check me out, I can't blend in, but they're looking like kind of the rest of the group. I think that we get a little bit more of actual criticism of that in Laura Jane Grace's book. And then the other piece of it is also like the actual struggle. So this one mentions like wear black to the intervention, wear black back to the car. And I think that kind of pairing with the lyric of wear black high as a kite, wear black stone sober, I think that it kind of speaks to the struggle of, I guess, drug use, particularly on that scene. And again, it's very subtle in the song, and it's really obvious in Laura Jane Grace's memoir because she speaks really candidly about her drug use and different mental things that were going on that influenced that, including different interpersonal things, mental health, but also gender dysphoria, which I think that that's something that's important to be discussed. And then the final song is Stench of the Unburied, which deals with nostalgia, but it also deals more heavily with the details of struggle and darkness. So this one is less, I guess, subtle than Wear Black in that sense. And again, it fits really well with what Laura Jane Grace talks about in her memoir. So that is it so far as albums go, but I did want to match really quickly a couple of books with some songs. Of course, I can't have a video about the Mountain Goats and not mention the best ever death metal band out of Denton. However, if I were to pair that with a book, it would have to be Laura Jane Grace's that I've already talked about. Because, first of all, it just really fits well because she talks about putting together a band, and there are a number of people that she, like, goes with, and then they kind of fall out, so it makes sense. And also, Laura Jane Grace's rendition of Best Ever Death Metal Band is the reason that I want to marry her. So I could not mention that. Now, the actual songs that I'm going to suggest books with. The first song that I'm going to mention is off of the album Full Force Galesburg, and that is Chinese House Flowers. And this song kind of talks about somebody not necessarily falling out of love, but that kind of rose-colored glasses that was on their significant other is no longer there. Some significant lyrics include, and the dim light that filters through casts a new light on you. And then further on into the song, I used to love you so much that I was sure it would kill me, and I want you the way you were. So for that song, I have paired it with Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which is focused around a toxic relationship. I've talked at length about this book a number of times, so I will let you check out those videos to get a little bit more on this. But I thought this fit that very well. The final song that I'm going to be talking about is off of All Hail West Texas, and that is Jenny. Now, of course, I had to mention Jenny. There's internet discourse about whether or not this is about lesbians. Additionally, I had the perfect lesbian motorcycle book, which just fits with the song, which is about somebody riding off into the sunset on a motorcycle. Now, there is, of course, the timeless question, is Jenny a person or is Jenny the motorcycle? And thankfully with this book, that can be up to your interpretation. The book that I chose is Road Queen, Eternal Road Trip to Love. This is an enemies to lovers fake dating book, which is excellent. The song Jenny totally vibes with parts of this book. There's not really much deep with this book or the song because the song isn't necessarily that deep and neither is the book. But it's both about lesbians and motorcycles, and you could totally read the end of this book and listen to Jenny, and it would be great. So that is the last book and song that I have. If you've read any of these, definitely let me know what you think about them in the comments. If you listen to the Mountain Goats, let me know your favorite album or your favorite song. Hopefully somebody found this video at least kind of interesting. I had a lot of fun coming up with it. So thank you all so much for watching. Bye.